Welcome to Wednesday, the 4th day of January 2023. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily and WYDOT. Remember, when there's ice and snow, take it slow. As we take a look at the weather, it's all about the Pacific still, and it really will be for a good another 7 to 10 days. That's where all the weather action is going to be, in the Pacific and along the West Coast and the immediate interior coast. East of the Divide, it's going to remain rather chilly with some windy areas, especially along I-25 and Interstate 80. This will cause some areas of blowing snow in some areas, so there's still going to be some travel headaches in the wind-prone areas. The West Coast is just going to be battered, not only with heavy rain and heavy mountain snow, but also they're going to get a lot of wind. And you'll see why here in a minute when we show you some satellite photos. Moisture coming off these West Coast storms will move inland, bringing occasional mountain snows to the interior of the Rockies and the Great Basin states. However, the pattern is in a situation here where a lot of these storms hitting the West Coast are not going to be able to maintain their integrity and get over the divide. Now, we just saw that where a storm was able to get over the divide and become better organized here with this most recent storm. But over the next week, we're going to kind of just get pieces of energy as the storms get battered and chewed up by all the coastal mountain ranges and the mountain ranges between the Front Range and the West Coast. Not much precipitation east of the divide in this pattern. You just don't get a lot of moisture that can spill over the divide. But along and west of the divide, that moisture will continue. We're still expecting by mid-month some changes that'll be colder and more stormy for the interior U.S., but it's got to go through the process. We've got to go through another week or 10 days of the West Coast continuing to see one storm after another. Satellite photo this morning across the Pacific shows just a giant storm. Very well formed, very well put together storm just off the West Coast heading inland. Boy, that is a very large, very impressive storm just off the West Coast. And you can see off to the west. Another patch of moisture coming in behind that upper level low that's just off the coast. And if we were to focus in, you could see how well formed that system is with the swirl and the moisture now just moving into the California coast. What the storm will do is it will move eastward into California, parts of the Pacific Northwest, but it won't be able to maintain the structure that you see here, as it will get chewed up by the mountains and the land as it comes on in. But nonetheless, it is going to push a tremendous amount of energy and moisture and wind into the West Coast. And then we have a piece of it. This is today. And what will happen is this system will get a little bit disorganized as it moves inland. And then what we have are the remnants coming through during the course of the day on Friday. And this is what we're going to see. Storms battering the West Coast. They get chewed up. What's left drifts across the Continental Divide. This will keep the snow factory going in the high country. But east of the divide, you don't get much. Now, this is through Saturday, and you'll see that. You see how you have this delineation where the green just stops. Once you get to the mountains and basically the I-25 corridor, you get a little bit of bleed over of a little bit of shower activity, but really this is just some snow showers coming off the mountains. So you have this downsloping or Chinooking zone that develops here as the air moves downhill or downslope off the divide. But west of the divide, the mountains will continue to catch the moisture with the focus, obviously, right along the West Coast. And there's the snowfall forecast through Saturday. Then as you take a look at the wind, this is the windy areas that will be developing over the next 24 to 48 hours along the east slopes of the Rockies, from Cody to Casper to Cheyenne, the 3 Cs I call it, where you get those windy conditions. And you can see strong winds right along Estes Park, right along the divide, along and west of I-25, and along I-80. So watch out for some areas of blowing snow. But look at these winds coming into California. Very, very strong gusty winds. So, you know, they had 3 winters with almost no storms that even looks even close to what we're seeing right now. And that trend of stormy weather will continue. Temperature-wise, over the next 5 days, really not bad. This area of blue right here is where the snow cover is the deepest, so that's going to affect temperatures. So what this temperature anomaly shows you is, yeah, it'll be slightly warmer than average, but these are January temperatures. So it's not going to be terribly warm, not terribly cold either, because of the Pacific influence coming on in. Now, this is by next Tuesday. The next front comes in, and you can see there's another big low up here off the Aleutian. So basically the storm factory will continue to produce storms, continuing to head into the West Coast and continuing to move through the Rockies. This is by 10 days from now towards next weekend. Similar pattern. High builds back over the Rockies. These lows come through. They get better organized as they catch moisture in the east. So the end result for the next 7 to 10 days, stormy on the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest, and west of the Divide, mountain snow showers occasionally coming through. East of the Divide, some fluctuating temperatures, but not a lot going on. Longer term, over the next 10 days, you can really see where east of the Divide, there's not much going on right there. So it's going to be in the far east, where there's going to be the most active weather, and across the far west and the interior west. In the middle, not much going on. Looking at the 10-day forecast, look at those amounts of rain in California, and then into the interior with the snowpacks will continue to grow, and grow. 10 days out and a little bit further. This is right around the middle of the month. Yesterday we talked about a mid-month change in the weather, and we do start to see what is likely going to be this Aleutian low, maybe retrograding back this way, allowing high pressure to build back into the eastern Pacific again. What that will do is kind of turn off the funneling of moisture into the West Coast. It'll go through a cycle. It'll work itself out, and that's going to be about mid-month, which then starts to bring the colder weather back into the interior United States and systems back east of the Divide again. But that's not going to happen until probably the middle of the month. A quick La Nina update, a couple of things to show you. These are the current sea surface temperature anomalies as of this past weekend. There you can still see La Nina still there, but weakening, but still there. And we have mentioned this warm patch, warmer than average sea surface temperatures. Keep in mind, these are not really warm water temperatures. You don't want to go swimming up here, but compared to the 30-year average, it's a warmer anomaly. And this contrast between the warmer and the cold right here is one reason why this zone is picking up and becoming so much more in the way of storms coming on through, along with that pipeline of moisture zipping across the Pacific towards western North America. Contrast that to a year ago. Yes, La Nina was still there a year ago, but we had a different situation up in the Gulf of Alaska. First of all, La Nina was stronger in terms of its temperature anomaly, especially on the eastern side. But look how much colder it was in the Gulf of Alaska. That warm patch was here, but it was placed further west. So we didn't have the situation where the breeding ground for storms would be as good as they are right now. So while La Nina is still there, there's a much different situation in the North Pacific, and hence why we've got a different pattern that we have seen so far over the last 4 to 5 weeks compared to where we were a week ago. And that difference in La Nina is going to be really apparent when you look at also a cross-section of the ocean. So when you look at what this means is the upper heat ocean content, basically a measure of the heat anomaly, whether it's colder or warmer, not only at the surface of the ocean, but when you go below the water. This is for 100 degrees west latitude to 180 degrees west latitude. You say, well, where is that? Well, if we go on the map right here, this is about 100 degrees, and then there's 180. So basically, it's in this area right here, the most important zone to watch where not only the sea surface temperature anomaly is, but the depth. Notice what happened, how the La Nina, after weakening during the spring and early summer, then really roared back. But not only look at the strength, but the depth of the water, its colder anomaly was really deep. But look what happened since November to where we are right now. There has been a sharp gradient of the sea surface temperature anomaly on the surface is there, but it's warming up below the surface. And eventually what this will happen is you're going to start to see the orange come back up here as we go into the next couple of months, basically as we get into probably late February and March, and see that La Nina fading. But when you see a sharp gradient like this, it does tend to get more stormy in the Pacific, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So as we go into January, the rest of January into early February, it should still be an active pattern like we're seeing now. Have yourself a great Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.